The 2023 Nissan Altima in SR trim with their variable compression turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. This represents the most expensive Altima, coming in about $35,000, and the sportiest Altima. However, at this highest trim level, weirdly, it only comes as front-wheel drive. We're going to talk more about the engine and what that means here when we get into the shop segment. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the interior and exterior. Starting with the exterior styling. The SR trim is their sportiest trim level. They have a lower trim SR as well with their naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, but what they've done is they've blacked out the front grille. You have some black accent pieces throughout and some SR badges with unique wheels. From an interior perspective, this car is largely unchanged from when it came out in 2019, which is not a bad thing. It is very easy to use. All the controls, from HVAC to driving modes to infotainment and even the shifter, are simple and physical. When it comes to feature content, this SR trim has everything at $35,000. It has the Bose audio system, it has heated seats, a heated steering wheel, a wireless charging pad, and they're all new for this model year, giant screen. It's their 12.3-inch display. It is somewhat large on the dash. It does protrude out, but it's easy enough to use. It has a 360 camera with laughably bad image quality, but it is there. It has wireless Android Auto, it has Apple CarPlay, and honestly, like the rest of this car, it is essentially idiot-proof, and that's the thing I appreciate about the Nissan Altima. It has good door storage, it has good center console storage, it has giant back seats, a full-size adult shifted back there, and the trunk space is more than adequate. It has a wide opening and will fit very large pieces of luggage. The one thing I will bring up is also the seats. These are the NASA-inspired zero-G seats that Nissan has patented. They are very soft, very comfortable, but the seat bolster is a little bit short in the thigh support. So if you're a taller driver, you might want to note that. The other thing is it has good visibility. It has blind spot monitors. It's a very well-equipped car, particularly for the price it sits at. And it's reasonably quiet. While I will argue some of the plastics aren't the highest grade, it is what you were expecting when paying in the mid-30s. Not more, not less. But with that, I think it's time for us to head into the shop.
Empower your drive for innovation and disrupt the automotive content landscape by subscribing to Savage Geese, the trailblazing thought leader in vehicular revelations. Harness the power of cutting-edge insights by smashing that notification bell with unyielding determination as you embark on a transformative journey to unlock the hidden truth behind the world of automobiles. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Seize the moment and elevate your status as a pivotal member of society online.
Mark, are they taking apart CVTs next door with that angle grinder?
No, they're upgrading them. I got a big race series 24 hours of Le Mans. I plan on taking my VC-Turbo and CVT too.
I thought you were going to take your Murano Cross Cab, our new official camera vehicle.
No, I wouldn't do that to that. That's my museum piece. I only bring that out to Cars and Coffee.
Do you have it in seafoam green?
I do, yeah, and I have it PPF'd with 100mm film, just in case I get hit with a ballistic missile.
So what are we underneath, Mark?
We're under the new Altima, although we've already done a video on this.
This is the 2023 with the VC-Turbo.
Yes, and that means variable compression. But before we get into that, we're going to look at what the Altima has become. It's a little bit larger. It's trying to compete with the Accord, Camrys of the world. It's gotten bigger.
It's also cheaper than those cars as well. The joy of the Altima is the price range and the Nissan financing.
Yeah.
So you can get this in the mid-20s for a base like stripper model, and then this is fully loaded at $35,500 or $35,900, which undercuts the other Japanese models. And then obviously Nissan financing is like 4,000 months at 99% interest, but you can get into one of these.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? Is every other brand is trying to go more and more upmarket. Like we see this with Mazda, where they're pricing people out, and you wonder why. Nissan's really trying to give you a lot of the features, much like Hyundai and Kia are, while still keeping the price down. This is American made, it's made in Tennessee. Obviously suppliers come from everywhere, like the SAC stampers are from Mexico, whatever, typical stuff. It's mostly covered up underneath, strut front, multi-link rear, depending on the trim level, not this one, but most every trim level allows you to get an on-demand all-wheel drive system. If you get the VC Turbo model with the CVT, it's all CVTs, it's front-wheel drive only. There was more effort in this generation at lowering, the NVH, like all of the noise in the car. So it's supposed to be quieter, more refined. It's supposed to feel more luxurious without killing you in terms of price. Now that all that's said, it's the same car that we talked about before.
You forgot, Mark.
What?
The sporty trim levels get sporty tuning for their passive dampers, Mark.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. How dare I? So the Sax dampers come with the SR trim levels.
Yes.
And the SR trim levels also get a whole bunch of stuff that you talked about on the interior, exterior with the blacked out stuff. So if you go all the way to this top trim, their big push is the VC-Turbo variable compression engine, 4-cylinder, that is supposed to give you 6-cylinder performance with 4-cylinder fuel economy. And they do this because they're not in the hybridization and they're not in the EV game in terms of like their regular commodity cars. So this was trying to apply an electromechanical solution to the internal combustion engine without putting 48-volt system, hybrid battery packs, all that crap on here. So tell me a little bit about that, Jack.
So essentially there are two compression profiles. I think it's 14-to-1 and 8-to-1. So their low compression is for the high power application. So when you go full throttle in a turbo engine, it'll make mid 200 horsepower and high 200 foot-pound of torque.
I guess
range.
18-to-1 would be hilarious.
It's 8-to-1.
Needs like jet fuel.
Yeah, so 8-to-1 for high power, low compression, and then it's 14-to-1 for high efficiency, low throttle application. And it's using an actuator, basically at the bottom of the crankshaft and two arms to change the amount of piston movement. So for low compression, it doesn't move as much. And for high compression, you have essentially a longer stroke or a longer up and down motion. Here's a nice animation of how that's working. It is purely electromechanical. So depending on throttle output, it's varying the compression of the engine. And it still puts power down through that lovely Jatco CVT. The one thing to note about the VC-Turbo application is the fuel injection system is both multi-port and DI, so it's a dual injection system as well, which is a nice thing. So they're hopefully not going to run into carbon buildup issues with turbo engines. The one thing that makes me question all of this is how complicated is it going to be to fix that electromechanical system if it fails 10 years down the road?
Well, you have a completely different bottom end on this car from a traditional internal combustion. This is not a widely used technology. The piston design, or at least the connecting
They're the first people
rod,
to do it.
Yeah, the connecting rods are vastly different than anybody else. I mean, it's not going to be, it's basically a commodity car with a more complicated, esoteric bottom end that is going to be more difficult to fix and troubleshooting with crankshaft position sensors.
Assuming there are problems.
Assuming which, whatever. Nissan has had a good run with like turbocharging technology. So, electronic wastegates, all of that stuff makes sense for this car. But that bottom end is a huge question just to eke out what's the fuel economy.
I will say, to be honest, it's pretty good. With me driving, as we're about to talk about in the drive segment, I'm hitting like mid-30s, which is impressive. Like 85 miles an hour, you're getting low 30 miles per gallon.
But what does this put out? Like 240 or is it 280 in terms of horsepower?
It's about 250. On premium, though, that's the other thing to talk about. To get peak horsepower numbers, you need to be running premium. But on regular, you're probably in the low 200s, which honestly, seeing that V6s are going away in this segment, like the Honda Accord we just did a video on, makes pathetic horsepower numbers. This makes more power, and it doesn't feel as asthmatic. But I think we should talk about that in the drive.
All right, Jack.
Mark, you and I both know there's nothing faster than a Nissan with expired tags, but sadly the tags are fresh. As this is a manufacturer vehicle, will be limited to the more...
Oh, that 18-to-1 compression ratio.
You mean 8-to-1, we're in a high power mode.
Did you, just out of curiosity, did you put jet fuel in here?
I did, Mark. That's why this just feels lightning fast with the CVT fake shifts.
Dude, this thing's moving.
Yeah,
Man.
I told you. Jatco power, Mark.
I mean, obviously the transmission aside, the engine is really impressive. If you're looking for some gusto when you're driving with no insurance from the cops, this is the model from you. But anyway, yeah, I mean,
You're joking aside, obviously Altimas, really all Nissan, it's called entry-level vehicles, get a bad rap right now for various reasons.
Why? Because people keep bringing it up like us, making all the jokes, perpetuating it.
Yeah, Mark, we're bad people.
There's nothing wrong with this car.
No, but it's giving you the sniffles.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because it's cold out. That's why this turbo is pushing me to the limits.
Honestly, I had minimal expectations when this car showed up. But now that I've spent far more time in this than you have, I actually think it's a good car. It rides well, it's quiet. The seats, other than my problems with them being too short, are really comfortable. They almost feel like they're fitted with marshmallows because they're so soft
and seats?
comfy. Yeah, they're really like...
Well, it's because it's NASA inspired, right? Zero gravity seating.
Yeah. Well, my sciatica is now just totally alleviated.
No, the seats are comfortable typically on all the latest generation Nissans, aside from the thigh cushions being kind of like weak. I think that they did a really good job here, and we just got out of the new Accord, and clearly we're not talking about longevity.
Dude, that truck in front of us, those bumper stickers are amazing.
Was that say Tomboy on the plate? Whatever.
Anyway, that's where we live. All right.
After doing the Accord, and you realize just how just when you realize how boring the Accord has become, and just to get
a transportation pod.
Yeah, a transportation pod, and you drive this, and yes, it's not anywhere near as refined as that car is, but at least there's something going on here. The engine has some life to it. Like, it doesn't feel like you're just driving something that they created.
A Dyson.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about performance. I'm not talking about like engagement and sound. But there is something to be said about these types of cars becoming just totally lifeless. And at least this doesn't feel completely like that. I guess that's what I'm trying to get across.
No, it's honestly, I almost hate to say it. It's a good car. It really, all the check boxes of what an Altima needs to do. It's big, it's comfortable, it's quiet, it gets good fuel economy. To be fair, we haven't driven the base motor, but this variable compression engine does get in the mid to low 30s all the time, at least in my driving. It's a good car. I have no complaints. Inputs are all, fairly linear. I think, I don't think this feels anywhere as refined as the Accord does. The Accord definitely has accomplished going upmarket. Almost feels like an Acura product, where this doesn't have that same level of like high solidity, but it handles well. It's a good car.
I'm very happy with it, Jack. The only thing I'm not happy with is this horrible shit transmission, which, I mean, I guess...
When you drive it hard, it feels like a CVT. But when you don't drive it hard, you just kind of let it fake shift and putt around.
Yeah, let me clarify that. When you're actually driving this engine and trying to have some fun with it, then you try to... Yeah, I don't even know why there's paddles in here, honestly. I mean, when you do anything with the transmission outside of just going straight and butting it around, it becomes like a mess. The logic and the programming is...
But it's an NPC car.
Yeah, no, it's an NPC car, and it's one that is somewhat engaging. It is quick. All the things that they did, to your point, work. Yeah. The main things work, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, all right, Mark, with that, let's head into the final thoughts.
All right. Final thoughts on the Nissan Altima. The SR trim level adds features that many drivers will like. Blacked out accents on the exterior, a large infotainment screen, and safety features that make this car accessible to a multitude of drivers. In fact, you should head over to your Nissan dealership now to see if you can get financed today. There's a few things I don't like about this car. In the case of the VC-Turbo, Nissan has tried a unique approach to reshaping the internal combustion engine to meet fuel efficiency standards and emissions standards and regulations. What they've chosen to do is avoid hybridization, which seems like a good idea on paper, but they've reshaped the bottom end of the engine. And with a car like this that's not mass-produced across the board, it makes it harder for mechanics to fix it, troubleshoot it, and to get parts long-term. While it may meet the fuel efficiency standards today and the performance numbers they were seeking, other companies are doing it in a much more realistic way. While adding a battery pack and electric motors may seem a bit crazy, that technology is proven. This is not. I don't know if I would get this car because of that, but I can tell you one thing, I sure enjoyed driving it.